Hi, friends. This is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Disney Plus's new Amazing Spider-Man animated television show, 2025 animated television show. It is phenomenal, and there's a lot here to study from a Dungeons and Dragons perspective. So, what's important about this from a Dungeons and Dragons perspective? So, Dungeons and Dragons, this is really fascinating. What does Dungeons and Dragons have? It has established itself as having multiple perpetual legacy intellectual properties. This is a new term. What does this mean? It means when you reach a level of popularity and prominence where you are now a perpetual legacy intellectual property. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, all perpetual legacy intellectual properties. Mickey Mouse, perpetual perpetual legacy intellectual property. Something that is going to go on for centuries or millennia. Now, perpetual means forever. Close enough for government work. I like the term. I think it's very good language, right? So basically, it's a now. Spider-Man is absolutely a perpetual legacy intellectual property. Now, what happens with perpetual legacy intellectual properties? Well, they get relaunched and rebooted all the time. It happens every 5, every 10, every 20 years. Now we're even at a point where some things are being rebooted 35 and 40 years after their initial iteration. That's astounding, right? So, it's a very real thing. It's very significant, right? And Spider-Man is absolutely this. How many times have we seen the Spider-Man origin story? Like 10 times, right? So what's important here? So Dungeons and Dragons is in the same boat. Forgotten Realms, perpetual legacy intellectual property. Um, Dragonlance, perpetual legacy intellectual property, right? The 1983 Saturday morning cartoon, the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, perpetual legacy intellectual property. Strixhaven, so important because of what it did for canon, perpetual legacy intellectual property of both the Magic the Gathering side and on the Dungeons and Dragons side. Right? These are powerful, powerful forces. Right? And so the important part here is with the Disney Plus's 2025 Amazing Spider-Man animated television show, what's really significant here is we see reboots and relaunches all the time. Okay, nothing special there, right? What's special? Why am I taking the time to talk about the 2025 um, Amazing Spider-Man animated show? It is the best iteration of the perpetual legacy intellectual property ever. It is better than the original. It's better than the original story, right? Phenomenal. I cannot recommend it highly enough. 5 out of 5 stars. You've got to see this thing, right? So if that's the case, and this thing was able to defeat even the original iteration of this perpetual legacy intellectual property, we gotta pay attention to that, right? First of all, has this ever happened? Has this ever happened on? Has this ever happened on Dungeons and Dragons? Yes. Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen is better than anything Tracy Hickman or Margaret Weiss ever wrote. Just F. Wesley Snyder fully surpassed the original. It's tight, it's cohesive, and it's accessible. Whereas I would never read a Dragonlance novel. I would never, and the reason why is there's 190 of them, right? Like, they squeezed that orange until it was just fleshy pulp, right? And so Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman's, Dragonlance is just completely inaccessible at this point. There's no starting point, right? And who's gonna? It's like One Piece. I'm not watching 800 episodes, right? Like, so if there's going to be a reboot or a relaunch, that's helpful because it allows people to re-access it. But what's really astounding is what F. Wesley Snyder did fully surpassed anything Tracy Hickman or Margaret Weiss ever did. But that's the same thing on 2025 Amazing Spider-Man. So how did it do it? All right. So first of all, let's jump in and let's actually examine how you create a new iteration within a perpetual legacy intellectual property that's better than anything that came before it. So first and foremost, you honor the original character, Peter Parker, right? That's Spider-Man. Miles Morales, great new character, but I'm not sure he's Spider-Man, right? And I actually think we should really be thinking about giving Miles Morales a different name, like Spider Dude or uh, Spider Guy. That neither one of those hits, but the reality is, it was really nice to see Peter Parker back. I don't want Miles Morales to go away, but I really appreciate that Disney was like, we need to honor that there is a Peter Parker, right? We can't just throw all the momentum behind Miles Morales. So I thought that was important. Second, be willing to change the story, but do it in ways that are completely unexpected. The addition of Nico Madoru to the Spider-Man story is absolutely brilliant. Getting rid of and also getting rid of Mary Jane, right? Like, you got to know, where, what, if you're whittling, you got to know when to cut a nub off, right? And Mary Jane at this point is a nub, right? Like, it just there's no value in her story with Peter Parker, right? So I absolutely liked that they got rid of Mary Jane and replaced, and they gave him this friend, Nico Minoru, and that was absolutely brilliant. So making changes that are risky and that are calculated and that use characters from other intellectual properties in fresh ways, right? And that's Nico Minoru. Also, representation. Norman Osborn is African American in this, and his friend and his son is African American in this as well. Representation is there, but it's also balanced, right? Like, it's not everywhere in the show, right? There, and so everybody gets a turn. I think that's the issue. We do want inclusion, and yeah, I'm gonna say those dirty words, right? Like, boy, diversity, equity, and inclusion have really had a rough time. I think we still need to preserve these. I think we need to preserve diversity, equity, and inclusion. But that doesn't mean you get rid of white people. It means you include everyone, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why DEI got in so much trouble, is it was at the exclusion of white people, and that was not good. That was not good. So DEI's got it's got a lot of work to ever get back. It may never return. It may return in a different guise, and but we want to make sure that there's representation for everyone. So I really like that representation is done here with balance. So that was excellent. The other thing is making Norman Osborn Spider-Man's ally before he becomes his enemy. Now he hasn't become his enemy yet, but I'm expecting he will. I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Also, building a relationship between Norman Osborn and Otto Octavius, absolutely brilliant. So tying in characters, keeping the same classic characters, but giving them new relationships, right? In this, Dr. Octavius was simply an employee of Norman Osborn who went rogue. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, right? So being willing to make changes in the canon, significant changes, real changes that have impact. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I was very, very impressed with that. So yeah, I really think this did. So being willing to make changes in the intellectual property that are real risks, right? Being willing to get rid of core canon characters, right? Keeping representation strong, and then keeping the original character, keeping a majority of the original characters, but fundamentally changing their relationships. This is a perfect formula for creating an iteration in a perpetual legacy intellectual property that is better than any iteration that's ever come before. I think it's how F. Wesley Snyder built Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, which far surpassed anything Tracy Hickman or Margaret Weis ever did. And I think this is by far the best Spider-Man story ever told in any medium. In any medium. If you haven't seen this thing, get on it. It is absolutely incredible. This is how we build perpetual Dungeons and Dragons intellectual properties that surpass anything that came before, because we need to be more than just Dragonlance. And at this point, I think it's only happened on Dragonlance. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider like, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.